And tonight on the Daily Wrap, after big threats were made against Dr. Ben Carson and Donald Trump, it looks like the Secret Service they wanted is coming their way. And Hillary Clinton may have won last week's Democratic debate, but did her performance help her in the polls? Plus, is the Pope plotting to change the Catholic Church? This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And may God have mercy on your soul. I'm Joe Concho along with Rick Unger. We got a very
religious about it, yeah?
Yeah, well, you know, we're talking Pope tonight, right? I'm sure Donald Trump's happy that he has Secret Service protection. He won't be going to the pearly gates anytime soon.
Well, one hopes not.
One hopes not.
Actually, I think it's Ben Carson who should probably be the happiest, and he was not really seeking it.
It's true.
But apparently needs it.
Trump could afford to pay it on his own, critics say.
Actually, the critics do, and I'm not going to criticize him on that. If somebody else gets it and he has reason to request it, then he should get it too.
Do you think El Chapo will now cease and desist on his $100 million bounty on Donald Trump?
Not if he's really serious about it, no. I'm sure he's not going to let anything stop him, except that he never probably was going to do it anyhow.
He's very crisp tonight. Crisp.
Chris.
To Mr. Chris Wright. She's America's pundit and a Philly attorney. Heather Hansen is back, wearing white, which is rare. Yeah. And finally, Forbes.com columnist and Emmy winner Bill Tucker is back as well. Smile, Bill.
That's fun. He's smiling.
Let's get right to the Daily Download.
Should you have Secret Service protection now?
Well, we're getting the biggest crowds. You know, last night we had 8,000 people in Virginia. We had 20,000 people in Dallas, Texas. We had 35,000 people in Mobile, Alabama, and 20,000 in Oklahoma. And I know this, if I was a Democrat, they'd have it. But it's really up to them. They know what they're doing. And I assume they're doing the right thing. I would hope they're doing the right thing.
And as we mentioned, Donald Trump wants Secret Service. Looks like he's going to get it. According to an exclusive report at Newsmax.com, both Mr. Trump and Dr. Carson have received multiple death threats and terrorist chatter. Let's bring in our resident security expert. Do we have him? We don't have Mr. Gilliam. Okay, so let's talk about it amongst ourselves, shall we? All right. You already say, all right, you know what, he probably deserves it, right?
Well, look, I mean, it's not about the money. It's about whether or not, A, you've gotten legitimate threats, B, you are a major candidate, as defined, strangely enough, it turns out, by the law. We've learned how this is done. And if he's had these death threats, we know Ben Carson's had some terrible death threats, yes, the Secret Service should be providing protection.
Okay, lightning round quickly. We have Mr. Gilliam. Would you give him Secret Service protection?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. I don't think you have a choice.
Where do you draw the line, though, is the question.
Not to spend the money. Well, there are certain qualifiers, as Rick said, that you know, it falls into where do you pull, and what are your opinions, and what's public opinion of you. I think most candidates, like Dr. Ben Carson, don't want it. It restricts their movement. It restricts their ability to interact with the people that they're supposed to be interacting with. But if it's a question of safety, you have to do it.
Tucker, quickly.
Quick answer: yes.
I like that. Pithy. Anyway. Let's bring in Jonathan Gilliam. He heads a, obviously, security firm. He's also a former special agent for the FBI and a Navy SEAL as well. Jonathan, good to see you again.
Always good to be with you all.
Okay. And he has hair.
Yeah, there's a lot of hair going on there. Well, you're talking about that a little later in the show, actually. So is this unusual for non-elected officials, Jonathan? I don't remember this happening in other presidential elections.
Actually, it did happen for Barack Obama a little bit before he actually got the nomination. So it has happened before. And, you know, look, I think the way the Republican group of candidates is going, really do see these two individuals as the two guys that are out front most. And if they're having some type of threats to their life, which I have to really kind of wonder, especially with Ben Carson, if the FBI is involved, there must be some legitimate threats. So typically the Secret Service and the FBI don't intermingle when they do their operations. So I'm kind of interested in where this is going to develop.
Well, actually, Jonathan, it's Rick. We do know at this point that he has had, Dr. Ben Carson, some pretty terrible threats. In fact, he did not seek Secret Service protection. They kind of talked him into it because the FBI and the Secret Service is very worried about his safety, and in that case, he should have it. I am curious what you think about critics. I mean, I'm not known to be Mr. Trump's biggest supporter, but I don't think that just because he's wealthy doesn't mean that he should get hit with a bill bill that another candidate wouldn't get hit with. Why are people criticizing him for wanting protection if he's had death threats?
I just think it's ignorance, and I think people don't realize that there's a difference between, civilian security firms and having a federal law enforcement agency protect you. It's a lot different. The locations that they can carry is extremely different, and the fact that they have databases and the rest of the federal government behind them, the protection doesn't even come close to what a federal agency can provide. So I think that people are speaking way out of terms on this stuff. If there's legitimate threats to anybody really that is a candidate for the President of the United States and a viable candidate, I think that there should be some involvement with the Secret Service and the FBI where they're at least looking into these things. And I think when you get individuals that are this high in the polls, we need to start taking a serious look at their protection.
Jonathan, it's Heather Hansen. We saw this with Reverend Jesse Jackson. He needed to get Secret Service when he was running for president. We saw it with Barack Obama. What do you think is the consistent factor now that we're seeing with both Ben Carson, 3 of those gentlemen happen to be African American, as well as Donald Trump? Do you think that it is there's a prejudice involved there? Do you think that it simply has to do with big opinions are getting the type of action that needs Secret Service involvement? What do you think it is?
About 30 seconds, Jonathan.
I think that really comes from where the threat is in itself is coming from. With Dr. Carson, it could be either way. With Donald Trump, we know that he has the guy from Mexico that's. The fact is that we don't really know because we don't know what those specific details to those threats are.
Okay. Jonathan Gilliam, thank you so much for joining us, former Navy SEAL, former FBI agent. I guess my final question actually would be if Trump wanted to hire you privately, what do you charge per hour?
I'd rather him make me Secretary of Defense.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Time for Jonathan to go.
That will be interesting. All right, sir, we'll let you go on that note. Thank you so much. All right, so Governor Jeb Bush and Donald Trump have been going at each other over 9/11 during the past few days. Let's hear what exactly Mr. Trump said about Mr. Bush.
I don't want Jeb Bush to say, my brother kept us safe, because September 11th was one of the worst days in the history of this country.
My brother responded to a crisis, and he did it as you would hope a president would do. He united the country.
What would you have done?
Well, I would have been much different, I must tell you. Somebody said, well, it wouldn't have been any different. Well, it would have been. I am extremely, extremely tough on illegal immigration. I'm extremely tough on people coming into this country. I believe that if I were running things, I doubt those families would have, I doubt that those people would have been in the country.
So does Mr. Trump's argument hold water? Let's go to Bill Tucker first, because I have a feeling I know the way Heather and Rick are going to answer this one.
It's probably the same as I am. That's outrageous. That's a ridiculous statement to make. I was harshly critical of President Bush while he was in office, but I never, ever did I even entertain the notion that somehow he could have been all prevented 9/11 from happening.
The liberal argument that you hear a lot about George W. Bush when he was in office was that he was given warnings in August about terrorists may use planes as, I don't think they said weapons, but at least hijack. No one could have forecasted they're going to take them over and fly them in the planes in the Pentagon. So is this all just about the fact that Trump hates Jeb Bush, sees him as the biggest threat because he has the most money, so he's going to go after him and connect him to his brother?
He only Donald Trump knows what his motivation is. Look, I mean, there has been criticism along the lines of he was ignoring reports. You know what? I think he was, but you know what? I do not. Ambiguous. Yeah, I don't blame President Bush for what happened. I think it's outrageous to do that. It's another one of these leaps too far by Trump that won't hurt him at all.
That's what I was about to say. Well, hurt him with his base or his voters.
And actually, see, his base can fall back on the fact that 4 of the 19 terrorists were here on expired visas. So there's always a kernel of truth to the things that he says, and his supporters can take that kernel and use it in support of that argument. I mean, there were people here that wouldn't be here if everything was handled perfectly.
I think the Trump strategy is to always connect Jeb Bush to George W. Bush.
Absolutely.
And even as conservatives, they like George W. Bush as a person, probably didn't think he was the greatest president in the world, felt that he spent too much, so on and so forth. So I think that's part of the strategy, no question. Okay, so share your thoughts on Secret Service protection and the war between Donald Trump and Jeb Bush by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. It's right there below. Yep, there it is. Coming up, will Vice President Joe Biden run for president? Big news tonight.
I don't think any man or woman should run for president unless, number one, they know exactly why they would want to be president, and two, they can look at the folks out there and say, I promise you, you have my whole heart, my whole soul, my energy, and my passion to do this. And I'd be lying if I said that I knew I was there.
And that was, of course, Vice President Joe Biden appearing on CBS Morning Show, agonizing over whether or not to run for president. Now, Ed Henry of Fox News is reporting that 3 of his sources close to the vice president have confirmed that Joe Biden will, I repeat, will, enter the race for the Democratic nomination for president. Henry also suggested that caution should be taken with respect to earlier reports issued today by NBC News, stating that the vice president would announce his intentions within 48 hours. While Biden's entry in the race would, to say the least, complicate matters for Hillary Clinton, the current Democratic frontrunner has been measured in her comments on a possible Biden run.
Are you doing anything to prepare for Joe Biden potentially ending the race? Is your campaign doing anything?
No, we're not, because this is such a personal decision, and the vice president has to, sort this out. He's been so open in talking about how difficult this time is for him and his family.
So, Heather Hansen, if the vice president does enter the race, how much damage does this do both to Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, or either one of them?
I think it does an equal amount of damage to either one of them and makes it a really interesting race. I don't know how Hillary will go after him. I don't know that she will. You saw it right there.
Well,
I think
so
that
far nobody's gone after anybody in the Democratic
well, that's
race.
Right. That's right. But at the next debate, I would have liked to have seen Biden go in before the first debate. I think the next debate will be very interesting. I think Biden's timing, if he does announce this week, right before the Benghazi hearings, is interesting. He's clearly aiming for Hillary because I think that most people have discounted Sanders. But I think it will have an equal effect.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Heather. And Bill, why is it that everybody's making an assumption that if the vice president were to enter, as it now appears he may be doing, that it would be Hillary who would suffer from that? I think Heather's right. You're going to see both of them lose percentage points.
No, I think you're going to see it hurt Hillary more than Bernie, because I don't think a lot of people give Bernie a real genuine chance at winning it, whereas people do give Biden a really serious chance at winning the contest. Look, he looks moderate. With the push in this party trying to go to the left, he looks moderate.
Every poll shows that a Biden candidacy hurts Hillary far more than it hurts Bernie Sanders.
I don't know that that's true, actually. Some of the polls that I've seen have shown them both getting lopped off. And interestingly, while the polls have shown some ebbing in the support for Joe Biden over the past month, people are growing tired of the drama, it appears. But the question now becomes, what do you expect will happen to those numbers should Biden announce in the next few days? Joe, isn't it true that the best time for any candidate, the moment that they're the most popular, is right before they run for office?
And then they actually have to be exposed for things they've said and done. I think Joe Biden is very clean. He's very articulate.
That's what he said about Obama and got a lot of trouble for it.
That's my point. Hillary Clinton is exploring another invalid truth. We'll be generous with that when she says, no, we're not planning for Joe Biden to be. We're not even thinking about it. It is her worst nightmare, because Democrats like you would always take Biden over Hillary in a heartbeat. Every other Democrat we've had on the show likes Biden over Hillary. Hurts her the most easily. Bernie Sanders actually benefits because he's the only one that's seen as an outsider.
But do you think he benefits enough to actually defeat one of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because his trustworthy numbers are at 60%. And Hillary's untrustworthy numbers are at 60%. She's seen as a trustworthy guy.
I'm not buying that.
You always want what you don't have, and now that Biden's in, I think Hillary is on a trajectory upwards. I think she did well with the debate.
She dropped after the debate.
No, she did not.
Bernie's numbers improved after the debate.
So did hers, just not as much. We're going to get into this in the next segment, but that's not accurate. In every debate but the CNN debate, she outpaced him by a bit, and in the CNN numbers, he did get 5 points. She got 3.
Put those 3 on the stage, because I'm going to discount the other 3. Who's the best candidate of those 3? Biden, Sanders, or Hillary?
It's Biden.
What's that?
Depends who you ask.
Who
Ask
you ask?
Hillary.
I'm
she's
asking
gonna say
you.
Hillary.
I'm not asking Hillary. I'm asking you.
I think the reality is that Hillary will be the nominee. I personally like Biden, but Hillary will be the nominee.
She is a horrible candidate. The email thing's going to blow up in her face.
She'll be your next president.
She'll be your next president. Oh my goodness gracious!
No,
She'll be your next president.
I think you're right.
I don't think she's.
All right, now what happens? Let's say Joe gets in. He's getting a late start bill.
Right.
We can presume that he's obviously been doing some fundraising behind closed doors, but can he possibly catch up in that regard? There's only so much he could have been doing.
I don't know how much he has to catch up. He's been the vice president for 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
People know who he is. He's got instant name recognition. People know where he stands, and people like him. And I don't care. We can say all the political conversations we want. We look at our candidates and think, well, I got to like that person. And people like him, and they don't like Hillary.
Well, Bill raises a point, Joe, that I think is interesting. Heather, you can weigh on this too. Is there a benefit to incumbency? You're right. Everybody's been watching him for all these years. He has the benefit of incumbency. But we haven't had a vice president become president since George H.W. Bush.
Right.
So does it really matter anymore?
It doesn't matter. I mean, Al Gore was a horrible candidate in his own right, right?
And he didn't win.
What's that?
He didn't win.
He won the national. He won, obviously.
Yeah, but he
not
didn't
the electoral.
win the election.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters. I just think the competition is so poor when your competition is a socialist and one of the worst candidates, major candidates I've ever seen in Hillary Clinton.
Do you think it matters?
I think she's turning it around.
I do too.
I think that you're going to see a lot of changes. The people that I talk to, the women that I talk to, women who are after the debate, and now that she's taken the offense on the email thing, there's just been a change.
The FBI will have a say on that offense.
Well, they will. You're right about that. We're going to do a much deeper dive on this in the next segment. Do you think Joe Biden's going to enter the 2016 race for the White House? Let us know what you think at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up next, we are going to take that deep dive. Hillary Clinton may have had the best debate, but did it help her in the polls?
I have always fought for the same values and principles. Like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience. I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who likes to get things done.
And Joe Biden will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What, Hillary? You don't agree? Hillary thinks that's very funny. Well, welcome back to the Daily Wrap. While most polls and pundits suggest that Hillary Clinton won the first Democratic debate last week, the latest CNN ORC poll reveals that Senator Bernie Sanders got the better of Mrs. Clinton when it comes to increased voter support in his bid for his party's nomination. According to the poll, Mrs. Clinton currently has 45% of the vote, up 3 points from September, while Senator Bernie Sanders holds 29% of the vote, up 5 points from September. Meanwhile, Vice President Joe Biden, who has not yet entered the race, but as we've noted is expected to announce his intentions in the next 48 hours, has 18%, down 4 points from the previous month. Biden's decision may prove critical to Hillary, as the CNN ORC survey finds that when the vice president is taken out of the equation, Mrs. Clinton's numbers improve considerably, indeed by about 11 points. Still more interesting, with or without Vice President Biden jumping in, registered voters overwhelmingly believe that Hillary Clinton is the candidate best prepared to handle a number of the important issues of the day. If Democratic voters really do have substantially more faith in Clinton to handle the big issues, and that includes the economy and foreign policy, Joe, how can any other candidate hope to best her in the primary races when the Democrats think that she is far and away the right person to handle the issues?
People aren't voting on preparedness. People are voting on likability ultimately, and that's the way it goes. Because
Barack Obama,
right. Barack Obama was in the Senate for about 5 minutes, didn't even know where the bathroom was, and then he runs, and everybody says, "Well, you're not experienced." Remember, she had the 3 a.m. phone call ad.
Right.
Oh, a lot of good that did her, right? So in the end, Biden's the more likable candidate.
But Heather, how does this square? For months, we've been hearing that Hillary Clinton is untrustworthy. She does terribly on that question in virtually every poll we see. And yet, when people are asked, who do you trust to handle the important issues, she creamed the other candidates.
Because I think people understand or think that they're all politicians. And so it doesn't matter whether or not I trust them, because truthfully, I don't trust politicians. And that's why I think Trump is doing so well.
I think she's right. I think she's dead right on about it.
So it doesn't matter whether I trust her. Will she be able to save me? And is she a port in a storm? Absolutely.
I think you're firing on all cylinders today.
Yeah, what's up with her?
Once again, I think you're right. People complain, I don't like her, I think she's untrustworthy, she lies, she cheats, she steals, and they vote for her because they think she's tough enough to do the job.
Compared with those other idiots on stage, and I will call them idiots, okay, particularly Chafee.
Right.
And then O'Malley was just a wet mop, and then
Howdy Do.
Jim Webb's going to run as an independent now, from what I'm going to hear. He's going to
that
drop
what you
out.
hear?
Yeah, the guy whose forehead doesn't move.
Right.
Compared to those three and Bernie Sanders, who was horrible on foreign policy, right? Particularly taking on ISIS.
Well,
yes, of course she's going to look stronger.
That's why she ends up with the nod. However, the latest New Hampshire poll out today suggests that Sanders remains roughly 10 points ahead of Clinton in the critical primary state. While this is at odds with the Suffolk University poll that came out last week, which showed that the race is virtually tied in New Hampshire, would Clinton and Biden, should they lose to Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire, does that deal a serious blow to these candidates, Heather? You've been right on everything. Don't screw up now.
Here's the thing with the polls. I read this somewhere, that the polls show who people want to date and not who they want to marry.
Right.
And I think that that's what we're seeing here. I think ultimately you're going to see Hillary pulling ahead because they want to marry Hillary.
I'm not going to touch that.
I am not going to agree with Heather.
That's way beyond
just
my...
in so many ways we can go with that.
That goes beyond my pundit credentials. Bill, what do you think, Bill? Why does one poll up there have her 10 points ahead, while one also after the debate last week has her actually pulling ahead of Bernie by 2 points?
I don't know. To continue this, I don't want to marry Hillary, so I don't know if I'm not sure I can really answer this question or not. My question is, why do we care what happens in New Hampshire, a state where 50 or 60 people live, and extrapolate that out to the rest of the country? I just don't think you can do that.
That's true. So, and on that topic, here's my next question to you guys. Let's say that Bernie Sanders does win up there. Does anyone see a roadmap for Sanders that would allow him to hold his own once the primaries move south, starting with South Carolina? I mean, you can make an argument for Joe Biden being able to win the black vote in South Carolina. You can make the argument for Hillary Clinton being able to win it. Can you really make the argument for Bernie Sanders being able to win it?
No, he can't. I mean, a Democratic socialist winning,
it's not happening,
I just
right?
don't see it.
And can you think of any southern state where he can win?
No. Not a one.
So why do you see him still as having a realistic chance?
Because we've been wrong about him this whole entire
No, we really
cycle.
We've
yes,
been wrong
we
about
have.
Donald Trump this
we
whole cycle.
never would have said he'd be up double digits in New Hampshire, that he could possibly win Iowa. We completely discounted his campaign, drawing 30,000 crowds. Come on, stop it. We've been wrong. Don't underestimate him.
Fun for the kids. How do you think Hillary Clinton did in last week's debate? Do you trust her to handle the tough issues? Let us know at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up, is the Pope plotting to change the Catholic Church?
That doesn't sound fun.
Stay with us.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. The New York Times published a hard-hitting op-ed piece Saturday arguing that Pope Francis is plotting to change Catholicism. According to the op-ed's author, his name is Ross Douthat, Pope Francis is working hard to push through a liberal proposal to let divorced and remarried Catholics receive communion before they get an annulment, and he even has an advisory body assembled to approve the controversial proposal. Okay, so joining us now in studio is Rick Henshaw. He's the Director of Communications for the Catholic League. Okay, so conservative Catholics are worried that the proposal does much more than simply allow divorced Catholics to receive communion, but actually that it rewrites Catholic doctrine. Does the Pope have the power to change doctrine?
No, the Pope doesn't have the power to change doctrine, and it seems, reading that column, it seemed to be very conspiratorial in nature. The Pope clearly wants this synod to be a healthy discussion. It seems that the Pope knows that there are these differences among different Catholics throughout the world, and he wants to bring it all out. He wants to have it discussed. But if you remember what he did before the synod, before he came here, on this whole question, he streamlined the annulment process. That seemed to be his message, that that's what the church could legitimately do here. It could take these areas where a Catholic has a legitimate application for nullity, where a marriage never really met the Catholic standard for marriage and it can be annulled. And he's trying to make it easier to do that. That seemed to be his preemptive message, knowing that you cannot change church teachings on the indissolubility of marriage. And so beyond that, to say that Catholics who divorce and remarry outside the church without a finding of nullity would be eligible for the sacraments, it seems unquestionable that he's not going to do that.
It's really interesting you said it the way you said it, Rick, because I got the same. I'm not a Catholic, but in reading Ross's article, I thought precisely what you just said. Boy, this is conspiratorial, and this Pope does not strike me as the conspiratorial type. He didn't convene the synod last year and then suddenly come out and say, this is what we're going to do. So why are there people who why are there people looking to shoot this Pope down at every turn?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a hard thing. I think there are people who are trying to co-opt this Pope to a particular agenda. So those who we would call dissenter or progressive reformist Catholics are trying to co-opt everything the Pope says to that agenda. He says something about being Christian and compassionate and welcoming toward people with same-sex attraction, and they take that and run with it. Say he's going to change church teaching, he's going to permit gay marriage. On the other side, conservative Catholics, I think, taking the bait and reacting in a panic on everything. He has an approach that's very pastoral. He wants to be inclusive, but within the teachings of the church. The whole question of forgiveness for those who have abortions, there's nothing new in that. But again, because of a situation like that, it was always required that the bishop pass on absolution in those cases. But many countries, like the United States, the bishop had already devolved that. The bishops had devolved it to priests. The Pope is just trying to make it universal in the year of mercy to emphasize that part of Catholic teaching, that nothing is unforgivable. It doesn't lessen the seriousness of certain sins, but nothing is unforgivable. That's what it seems to us he's trying to do, and everybody needs to just calm down.
My wife, who is the most Catholic person that you've never met, reacted to this article with 3 words. Popes don't plot. They don't do that.
There are plots against popes.
There are plots against popes, but popes don't plot. And that being said, we had a very interesting conversation about this. She said there's a big difference between canon law and doctrine and faith. My problem with Mr. DeWitt's article is he seems to confuse those and conflict those, church can change canon law. And there are plenty of examples of it throughout history. They meat on Fridays. We're going to eat fish on Fridays. Changing whether priests can get married or not, which happened in the 12th century. Those kinds of things are changeable. Those kinds of things happen. But when we talk about articles of faith or discipline, those aren't, right?
That's absolutely correct. And so something like marriage, the true definition of marriage and the permanence of marriage, as Jesus taught, he went further than the Pharisees at the time, who did permit divorce, and he said it's not permissible. Marriage is permanent. And so on things like that, you're right. That's church doctrine that is not changeable. And you're absolutely correct, and your wife is absolutely correct. Popes don't plot. I do think, again, that Pope Francis wants to draw out the different discussion here, get everything out in the open. And then
the truth is he doesn't have to plot either. He's got the chair of St. Peter. So he really doesn't have to plot.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Rick Henshaw, Director for the Communications for the Catholic League, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your input. Okay, so what do you think of the New York Times op-ed on Pope Francis? Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments, newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know. Coming up next, we're going to read some of your viewer comments. Always interesting. Stick around.
We've spent more money in Afghanistan than the Marshall Plan. That's a lot of money. We spent $1 trillion in Iraq. It's a disaster too. Maybe we should think before we get involved in chronic civil wars in other nations. I talked to a Navy SEAL not too long ago. He's been in 19 years, and he and I had dinner, and he said, you know what? We can go anywhere in the world. We can kill anyone you want. We can do anything you want. We can extract anyone you want, anywhere in the world, anytime. But he said, you know when we make the mistake? When you ask us to plant our flag and create an American nation or an outpost somewhere. He said, let's commit war when we have to.
All right, good stuff. So welcome back to Daily Wrap. To catch more of Ed's interview with Senator Rand Paul, tune us to the Hardline tonight. That's 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Newsmax TV. All right, let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have some thoughts about Secret Service protection being offered to Donald Trump and Dr. Ben Carson. Jason says President Obama was offered Secret Service protection early on in his campaign. Donald Trump is right to want equal protection. That's what Jonathan Gilliam actually brought up before, that President Obama did set a precedent for this.
I agree with him. I think the commenter is exactly right. If he's in danger, he ought to have the protection.
Agreed.
Okay, here's a comment from Dan who says, never knew Rick prior to this show. Uh-oh. He is so good? He almost makes me, whoa, he is so good, he almost makes me want to be a Democrat. But then I think of all that free stuff they want to give away, and I just think, I'll remain a hardworking Republican and earn my own way. You got to be you, brother, but thanks so much for the compliment.
I love when you go all 60s when you go with the... Way to go, brother.
Well, it's because he's, in awe that somebody actually likes it.
It's so odd for me to get a comment like that. I didn't know how to react.
I think deep down, in a place you don't want to talk about at parties, that you like the negative comments more than the positive because you are, or at least evoking an emotion. You're getting to people.
Yeah, and every now and then, and all I really want is to get people to be fair and look at both sides of the issues. I don't care which way you come down if you know what you're talking about. That's all I want.
Soon the rumors will be getting who else is running for the Democratic nomination. I think Rick's going to jump
Not
in.
a chance.
That's his message. No chance. Too many skeletons in that closet. We just learned during the commercial break. Anyway, here are some comments on the 2016 presidential election. Irene says, I'm just afraid that the Democrats are going to cheat at election. Already they are signing up all the illegals to vote Democrats. Well, that's a proven fact, Rick.
No, it's not a proven fact.
All right,
and I'd like some evidence of that from the commenter. If you've got it, let us see it. Michael says, Ted Cruz is the person we need at this time in our country's history to save our republic from the destruction being done by liberals. If Cruz could get the amount of free time by the media like Trump does, he would be way ahead. But sooner or later, he will get his chance and turn it all around. Cruz in 2016, there are many who agree with that commenter.
He's in third right now.
At the end of the day, it may be Cruz who's left standing.
Really?
No, because let's go back to the earlier comments about likability.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz he may be smart, but he is not a likable guy. He's difficult to like.
I don't.
He is for me, but you know.
And here's a comment regarding Democratic National Committee Chief Debbie Wasserman Schultz, everybody's favorite here. Connie says the DNC needs to let go of DWS, same as the Republicans need to let go of Reince Priebus. They both lack the Trump deliverance to their party constituents. No wit, no smarts, no vision, and so politically correct. Boring. Ricky.
I so like that phrase, the Trump deliverance. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is good.
Finally, here's a comment regarding Muslim refugees coming to America. Bill says, Mr. Unger, you seem to be in favor of immigrant Muslims coming into this country. As only Trump has said, most of the clips shown on the news, it looks like about 75% are young, healthy young men and not families, as I've heard you say. I agree with you 50% of the time, but this time you were dead wrong. Taking in Muslim refugees will lead to nothing but trouble. Hey, if you agree with me 50% of the time, I can live with that, certainly, but I think you should take a closer look. It is mostly families as you go by the facts, and it's not what I want and don't want. I want people who've lost their homes to have somewhere to go.
You guys weren't here last week for this, but we basically profiled refugees being brought to certain communities around the country. And all I want to ever know is who decides where they go exactly in what town. And that's never, I keep looking it up.
And
no
the towns
explain.
don't get to, which is wrong.
Right. They don't get the vote. It's just accept them, all yours. Anyway, if you want to weigh in on Ricky, take over.
If you want to weigh in on any of the issues we discuss here on the show, be sure to send us your comments. Yay or nay, coming up next.
Well, you've probably already heard about the shocking new book, Unlikable, The Problem with Hillary by Edward Klein. Unlikable has already skyrocketed to the top of the bestseller list. It's probably the most powerful expose on Hillary ever written. Author Edward Klein has also written #1 New York Times bestsellers, The Amateur and Blood Feud. Now, in Unlikable, Klein offers a stunning, powerful expose of Hillary Clinton and her floundering race for the White House. With unprecedented access, Klein meticulously recreates conversations and details of Hillary Clinton's behind-the-scenes plotting. Klein also reveals the angry rivalry between Hillary and Barack Obama. Unlikable currently retails for $29.95, but you can get it now free with this offer. You can get this almost $30 value free today. Just go online or call 1-800-850-8749. With the 2016 election fast approaching, you need to get Unlikable and be armed with the truth about Hillary. Check out our incredible offer right now. People, it's time for the best question and answer session in the history of cable news. Say hey, no more delay or Tom delay. It's time for yay or nay. It's tremendous, Rick. Stop it. It's tremendous. It's outstanding. First up, as you loyal fans know, we have been calling for Larry David to play the role of Bernie Sanders on this program almost every evening for some time now. And on Saturday night, we finally got our wish.
Hello. Enough with the hellos. Let's do this.
Senator Sanders, how are you?
I'm good. I'm hungry, but I'm good. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to dial it right up to a 10.
Go right ahead.
We're doomed. We need a revolution. Millions of people on the streets. And we got to do something. And we got to do it now. Yeah.
Please, God. Now, if Bernie can win the presidency, we get that for the next 4 to 8 years.
You do have a point there.
That's right.
You do.
That's why I rooted for Sarah Palin so hard, so you get the Tina Fey for the 4 to 8, right?
It was too big of a price to pay.
Well, you're mine. All right, that's right. The former Seinfeld creator and star of Curb Your Enthusiasm made his Bernie Sanders debut on Saturday Night Live. Sanders even wants Mr. David at his next campaign rally. Is this the easiest casting call ever made since Jonathan Gilliam was chosen to play Uncle Jesse on the upcoming remake of The Dukes of Hazzard? Look at that. He'll play like a younger Uncle Jesse. It's like a prequel thing.
No, we can dice here.
Yay or nay?
I gotta say yay.
Yay on that, of course.
Absolutely.
Well, let's make it unanimous. Totally yay, yes.
Wow. I admit that was my idea, and Jonathan can kill me with his bare hands. He's a former Navy SEAL. I hope he has a sense of humor.
He does.
I think he'll be all right.
Does
And
he?
he has more hair now,
he
so
doesn't.
that's changed his personality a little.
Calmed him
He's
down.
calmed him
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
The Just for Men with the Grecian formula is working perfectly for him. Right now, he really is going to kill me. Next, of everyone on this panel, only one of us has been to the Playboy Mansion.
Heather.
No, not Heather. Ricky. And now it seems as though things have changed since you last visited, Mr. Unger. The place is in shambles. Apparently, there's more nurses than bunnies. Is this the end of the greatest piece of real estate of all time, yay or nay?
Good Lord, no. You have to see this place. Believe me, somebody will buy it. It's a extra. I mean, forget who lives there now and what happens there. It is an absolutely beautiful estate.
Were you invited by Hugh directly?
No.
Okay, a friend bought you along.
Well, no, I was invited to a couple
get
parties
cash.
there.
Couple parties.
I doubt that Hugh said you must invite Rick Unger.
Were there
you
pictures?
know,
Did you bring the iPhone?
No.
It was before
Did they
the
have an
iPhone,
iPhone?
right?
Did they have an iPhone when he went? That's what I want
He
to
would have
know.
had one of those Instagram
Before
with the
phones in
Polaroid.
general.
Handed him out the picture.
Okay,
I
Heather.
think it's going to be a great property. It will never be what it was the days of the bunnies. I think that we now have the internet.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah, it is. We do have the internet, which is why they no longer publish pictures of naked women in Playboy
But the real
anymore.
estate there,
The real
it would
estate.
just blow you
Oh, I
away.
can't.
That's
sure.
actually what impressed me more than anything.
Right,
Seriously,
more than the bunnies?
and that in the articles. No, I mean it is a remarkable property.
Wow, you're beaming right now. You're
It's
glowing.
such a nice place. Wow. Half a mile from my house.
Half a mile from your house. You could walk home in case you get overserved, as you normally do.
That's right. I could have easily.
Fascinating. Finally tonight, Nancy Pelosi has been called many things, but magnanimous likely isn't one of them. But now the former House Speaker is offering to help the GOP finally find its next speaker. And we quote, "I think in our caucus there is some interest and support. There's an openness to a bipartisan approach to this," Pelosi said in the Texas Tribune Festival. Now, Pelosi, however, stopped short of endorsing by name any particular Republican for Speaker, and for good reason. We'll quote her again. "Do you really want him to be totally destroyed in his caucus if I mentioned who I thought would be good? That would be the end of him." Interesting. Yay or nay? Should Republicans allow Nancy Pelosi a seat at the table in the Speaker selection process? And how many people do you think just threw something at their TV as a result of even asking that question?
In fact, they may not have a choice at the end of the day. They may not be able to elect a Speaker without Democratic votes.
Good point.
So
Pelosi ran a tight ship. You may dislike her, but this sort of thing didn't happen.
She didn't.
No.
Right.
No.
Notice how she said him, by the way?
Yes.
I like him.
Yeah.
War on women. Starting again. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. On behalf of our co-host, Rick Unger, Heather Hansen and White, and Bill Tucker, the Emmy winner, thank you for watching The Steve Malzberg Show. That's next.